Remakes and reboots are terrible. They're just rehashing successful stuff but making it worse. I can't see anything and it's too dark because they've got rid of the white leading roles. Yes, once again a new Disney remake has come out and the boring argument we've been having for the past 5 years has kept coming back like that rash on your pubes. Well, no more, because I'm defending them. Kind of. The first and main argument is that they're shit, which they are, but so are most films. In reality, they're just average films that are being compared against the top tier, which is like being the least famous of Will Smith's kids. He's still famous since he was produced by the slappy cuck, but those two have been in the spotlight since his scrotum. If you watch videos about films on YouTube, you've most likely listened to critics complaining about remakes such as Aladdin 2019. Characters are weaker, songs were worse, more screen time for the women, which is political propaganda, and that's why it has a critic score of 57%. The audience score, however, is 94%, so clearly the message of them being bad isn't getting across to people. Have you ever met a coffee snob? These are the kind of people that say, I cannot drink that instant crap. My coffee maker at home makes the best coffee in the world. The water boils at exactly 736 degrees Celsius. The coffee beans come from a mountain in Shangri-La and get blessed by 1,000 monks who each in turn lick the beans to give them their signature saliva flavour. Then they get ground down into the finest powder that's so fine that if you snorted it, you wouldn't even sneeze. Now that's real coffee. People like that are the same as most film critics, me included. I'm really into films, I want to make my own, and my hobby is dissecting them to find out if they've been Frankenstein together using body parts from other films, so of course I'm going to be a bit pickier and can't be satisfied with instant, quick and easy films like Aladdin 2019. Let's have a look at the other end of the scale where I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman sits there proudly. If you've seen this film, then it's either a masterpiece full of complexity or a pretentiously boring, confusing art film. Which is it? Well, it's both. It's the extravagant coffee that is so far from what coffee normally is that it kind of transcends it and becomes something completely different. We all sit on the scale somewhere, and I'm around the middle, maybe a little bit closer to the pretentious side. My parents wanted a film recommendation one time, and I gave them The Lighthouse, saying, I liked this, but it is weird. At one point, a man has sex with the lighthouse, so you know, not everyone's cup of coffee, because there's semen floating in it. Film critics and coffee connoisseurs are right because they should be more knowledgeable about the thing they're into than the average person. But also the average person is right because they want to watch something where they don't need to have an encyclopedic knowledge of film to enjoy it. So remakes and reboots are shit, but only if you're not on the average person end of the scale, which you probably aren't because you're here watching a video where I talk about films. Are the originals actually that good? Yes, according to the critics, but let's go back to the general public. Yes, again, they're still good. Star Wars, for example, the originals have high ratings in both the audience and critic scores, then the prequels and the sequels, let's call them the reboots, get around 50 to 60%. Just like Will Smith and his kids, everyone loves the originals, but the reboots, not so much. But have you ever asked someone what they like about the originals? A lot of people I've asked just say, they're classics, they were good for their time, lightsabers are well cool. Basically, they don't say anything specific. Conformity. That's the thing that trailer park dwelling meth heads yell at people for using pronouns that confuse them. It's also what was being tested for in the Ash conformity experiment, in which a group of 8 people had to answer which of the 3 lines is the same length as this one. The obvious answer is C, and in totally normal conditions, less than 1% managed to fuck this up, which must mean the experiment included a slug in the trial. However, when the group was made up of 1 test subject and 7 actors who intentionally say the wrong answer, it was found that around 75% of participants conformed to the group at least once and gave an incorrect answer. If people can conform to something this simple where the answer is glaringly obvious, is it that much of a leap to think that people can conform to the subjective opinion of a film being good? Justin Bieber's Baby, and I'm not talking about any of his illegitimate ones. That song was released in early 2010 and it was torn apart by pretty much everyone to the point of it being parodied to death. It was one of the first cases of mass piss taking because it came out at the beginning of the peak for Facebook and YouTube. Was the song actually that bad? No, it's no worse than anything else that came out at the time, but it managed to become cool to hate it because the general public became a voice you could listen to. If the song was released 5 years earlier, some music critics would have said, it's not a very good song, and that would be that. It would fade away like a cum stain on a bedsheet, only ever to re-emerge when pulling out your old iPod shuffle where you go, oh, is that Baby? Instead, it came out and turned into a competition of who could hate it the most. Bringing it back to Star Wars, the first ones came out and the critics, who were the only voices you could hear from in media, said they were good, and raised some very interesting points that probably convinced people that didn't enjoy them to change their mind. The prequels came out during early internet days, the critics said they were good, but as time went on and regular voices with convincing arguments get heard, the opinions started to change, and they became known as the prequels with this bad connotation. Then the sequel trilogy came out and we really get to see the split between people saying it's either the best or the worst. So the film's quality up to a point doesn't matter, and it's all to do with who you've been listening to. Where did this Black Panther Blu-ray come from? Coming back to the main point of this segment, the remakes ruin the originals. Maybe. Or maybe you're ruining the remakes. The Lion King 2019 was only successful because it was using the name of something that was already successful, like Will Smith's kids. It was an inevitability that it would bring in the kind of money that would make Walt Disney rise from his smoke-filled tomb. But why, if everyone knows these films are cash grabs? Because you keep fucking watching them, don't you? We all know these films aren't going to be amazing, and yet everyone keeps handing over their hard-earned cash like it's about to go out of date. Then they inevitably complain about the film they had no intention of enjoying. Every one-star review is someone comparing it to the original and saying it's a shot-for-shot remake, which we all know it is. Even reviews from not very long ago say these exact same points, and they act surprised that it's not as good as the original. Lion King 2019 is the 9th highest grossing film of all time, and you somehow missed the memo like you've been living under Pride Rock. It's similar to how people always complain about video game pre-orders and that you shouldn't do it because you might end up buying a game like Cyberjunk 2077 that arrived on store shelves with more bugs than the average Redditor's kitchen. Tons of people pre-ordered that broken mess, moaned about it on social media, then pre-ordered another game, showing they learnt nothing from their experience. So why do people keep falling for these cash grabs? Because most people don't really have their own opinion on remakes or reboots or pre-orders or really most stuff, because why would they? Let's go through a little scenario. You've just watched Lion King 2019 in the cinemas, and it was a boring experience that you had to sit through, while also next to a smelly stranger who brought crisps with them, even though they're the loudest food on the planet. You leave underwhelmed and head to YouTube to see if other people agree with your opinion of it being bad. You watch a few videos that run through the differences between the original, which confirms your opinion, and you might even leave a comment to show you agree. Then 4 years go by where you never really think about remakes and reboots because you have a life and other shit to think about, like getting some puss. The Little Mermaid comes out and you say, I liked the original, this might be just as fun. I mean, Lion King 2019 was alright, I guess. I don't really remember. It then isn't fun. You go online again to confirm your opinion with everyone else. This once again drums up the remakes and reboots argument that everyone agrees with, but then everyone forgets about in a couple of months because other things they care about more have cropped up. And then the cycle just sort of continues. That's how people can unanimously agree with the opinion that remakes and reboots are generally cash grabs, while also encouraging them to be by handing over their cash. You know, for a video about defending remakes and reboots, I haven't really defended them very much. If only I could start over, do a remake or reboot this video. Oh, that's right, I can. Let's go over those points again and actually defend them this time. Walt Disney once said, "We don't make movies to make money. We make money to make racist characters in films. Now get out of my office, you..." We all know that motto has changed over time because we have films like Thor: Love and Thunder, a film that even the director didn't give a shit about and would trash in promotional material. Obviously it's a dick move to rip on the CG artist who slaved away on your poorly managed movie for a fraction of your pay, but at least they got paid. Will Smith's kids made some shitty cash grab uninspired songs, but at least some talented people got money so their children don't starve, as they need the energy to run away from a crazed gunman at their school. Do you know how hard it is to come up with a new idea? You have to sit down and think for like a few hours, but that's too long. If we didn't have these unoriginal, lazy, 10 years late with jokes cash grabs, then it would be a pain in the arse to get a film job, because there would only be 12 films a year. The majority of films coming out are either sequels to reboots. Reboots are about something with a large fan base already, which means most of the creative work is done for you. So you can get out there with a camera and just have to make sure it's all in focus. The reason these sort of films get made is because new ideas are risky. For example, Beau is Afraid, which only the most dedicated of film critics watched. Now if they simply changed the name to The Joker is Afraid, then people will go, oh my god, it's a film set in the Joker's mind. This is so smart because it's saying an edgy thing I agree with. And there will be a ton of articles about it saying it will cause incels to kill people, which will make it even more of a money magnet. It's all about a marketing compromise, and The Joker absolutely nailed it, because it was a semi-original film that had a DC skin covering it. The film wasn't even about the Joker, it was about a mental guy called Arthur who liked face paint, and if that's what the advertising focused on, then it would have been a straight to Quibi or worse. Anyone in media plays the marketing game, because you can either make something that hops on a trend, isn't creatively satisfying but people actually watch it, make something that only really appeals to yourself, then cross your fingers and pray it's not just you watching it, or you could try to preempt a trend and make something that hopefully appeals to people while also not being completely shit. When the Lord of the Rings show released its trailers, there was uproar, mostly about black elves because it was tainting the image of the superior all-white race created by a man who died 50 years ago. The show would be changing the works of the writer, creating something completely different, so it ruins the originals. But
If it's completely different, then why not just pretend it doesn't exist like Will Smith used to do with his son? When World War Z, that forgettable zombie film, came out, the writer of the book was asked how he felt about the adaptation being so different to what he had written. In short, he was glad it was so different because then it wasn't his story being ruined, it was someone else's. They had nothing in common except the title. If J.R.R. Tolkien was alive today, then maybe he'd feel the same way, or he'd welcome the changes, as some scholars have suggested he was anti-racist, which would really piss off the bigots, so win-win. You can choose whether or not a film is part of a franchise. For example, The Thing 2011, which I pretend doesn't exist because it's rubbish. It also added details that retcons some stuff from the original that ruins the plot. Poof! It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And The Thing can remain one of my favourite films. But not all remakes are bad. For example, one of my favourite films, The Thing, which was a remake of The Thing from Another World, which was an adaptation of the book Who Goes There? The Thing from Another World took some of the elements from the book, but being limited by technology weren't able to recreate it all, hence why it just looks like a gym bro. Then The Thing, coming out 30 years later, remade it and was able to recreate the book's story more faithfully, bringing in the amazing effects that make it so butt-clenchingly unique. This is what remakes should be for. Fixing the things you couldn't do with the originals, and recently that means making it look live action instead of animated, which is kind of a cool idea that hasn't really paid off. And this kind of remake should be left for the likes of Cats and Dogs, so the scene with the spy cats doing kung fu against Tobey Maguire as a puppy could look more realistic. That sentence started as a joke, but I'd actually quite like to see that. Some remakes will do better than others, and there'll always be people that prefer the originals, but I like that remaking something is an option because it might just work. You never know, in 30 years we might have a sensory virtual reality pod remake of Beauty and the Beast that allows us to smell the pungent air of 18th century France, look up Belle's dress to see if the animators were perverts, and look around the scenery where you might find a gay couple hidden away on the outskirts. That might just become the ultimate way to enjoy a classic.
Good, because like Will Smith's kids, it's fun to take the piss out of them. Troll 2, Birdemic, anything from Neil Breen, they're all disasters and it's fun to pick them apart and be in a group who join together to shit on those films like it just gave us food poisoning. People will go to midnight screenings of The Room and throw plastic spoons at the screen, which if you did that at a normal showing, you'd be dragged out by your ankles and sectioned, but here, you're just part of a community. That's the key to all of this and why I'm glad we have these shitty films, because I get a kick from being a part of a group, as I'm a weirdo outsider who's usually ostracised from groups, because they use words like ostracised. Also, let's be real here, we feel a bit superior with our film selections. Like, I collect Blu-rays. I haven't even watched all of them yet. I say stuff like, the quality's better than streaming, which it is, but it's a fucking hassle and an expensive one at that. Didn't it feel good when Justice League was being announced and all the fanboys were going crazy, but us film nerds were going, you know it's going to be terrible, DC have a pretty bad track record so far, and they're copying the Marvel formula but rushing too quickly to start up a cinematic universe. Like, how are you going to have the characters band together when we don't even know half of them yet? The signs are there, and then the film came out and we were proven right. Didn't that make you feel good? I didn't even watch Justice League and still haven't because I was that confident it would suck more than a desperate actor at a casting call. It doesn't even matter if the majority of people like the Disney remake slop, because in our echo chamber we keep telling ourselves we're right, which we are. That's why we continue to make critical videos that have a longer runtime than the film they're criticising, and we watch hours upon hours of dissections into films we don't like or haven't even watched. But it also makes good films even better. If all we had was good films, then we quickly tire of them, like if we were to eat ice cream for every meal. These boring remakes are like boring vegetables, and you come across Everything Everywhere All at Once and it turns into that scene from Ratatouille, and everything goes crazy everywhere all at once. It gets really deep and you witness all this amazing talent on the screen, and then you're crying in the cinema because you're absolutely floored by it all, and it reignites that passion for film you've always had and makes you want to make your own so you can give that feeling of passion to someone else. That's why we need these shit remakes and reboots. Remakes and reboots are fine. They're easy money for normal people to enjoy, and us film nerds can stick with whatever A24 releases. It may feel like good films are rarer and we have more bad movies than ever, like Meg 2, The Same But Bigger, a film so bad that it's straight to a DVD rip in China. But we don't, and we'll probably look back on these years fondly thinking they're great because that's what we always do. Films were better before all the reboots? Really? There was a lot of bad films like Jack and Jill starring the laziest comedic actor twice. Well, films were actually better in the early 2000s. Even Battlefield Earth, the Scientology movie starring lunatic Scientologist John Travolta. The 90s were better. Batman and Robin with bat nipples. 80s. Howard the Duck. And then there's all the boring, forgettable shit that doesn't even make it onto a list. Wherever there's money, there's going to be people making shit in hopes the revenue stream trickles down to them, and art is no exception. There's always going to be bad movies that we ultimately have the choice of watching, and I'm pretty cool with that, because I'm a person and we like to complain about stuff. Stuff like Will Smith's kids. Okay, I'm done.